Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah.
الحمد لله الذي هدانا إلى دين الإسلام وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله وأكمل لنا ديننا وأتم علينا نعمه فرضي لنا الإسلام دينا فلا نعبد إلا إياه ولا نستعين إلا به نشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا مولانا محمدا عبد الله ورسوله بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح الأمة فجزاه الله عنا وعن كل المسلمين خيرا اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد عبدك ورسولك النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا أما بعد رب يسر ولا تعسر وتمم بالخير وبك نستعين يا فتاح رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي ربي زدني علما والحقني بالصالحين سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم سبحانك لا فهم لنا إلا ما فهمتنا إنك أنت الجواد الكريم. My dear respected elders, brothers and sisters and fellow children in Islam, a message revealed to the most incredible human being in a cave evolved into a succession of historic global change. From individuals to society, the message of Islam reverberated across tribes and nations, countries and continents. This happened not because of the message alone, but because of those people who cloaked their lives with it. They obtained something so great that they had something to offer to the world. Spanning Arabia, Asia, Africa, and Europe, Islam planted its footprint wherever these individuals went. Not only was their presence notable, but the change that they brought to those land and people remain a sign of their once upon a time existence till this very day. Their legacy lives on in the foundations that they established in those societies. One of these notable individuals is Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu anhu, who was the first to gain the title Amirul Mu'mineen, the commander of the faithful. His reign saw the transformation of Islamic State from the Arabian principality to a world power. Umar's legendary administration can be introduced by one of his famous quotes. Even if a dog dies hungry on the banks of the Euphrates River, Umar shall be held accountable for it. Let that sink in. Even if a dog dies hungry on the banks of the Euphrates River, Umar shall be held accountable for it. He closely controlled general policies and laid down principles for administrating the lands that they conquered. As a result, the structure of the latter Islamic empire, including legal practice, is primarily due to him. When the lands under Umar radiallahu anhu were expanded, local notables were included in the new administration. Conversion of subjects to Islam was not encouraged. Non-Muslims took part in consultation in matters of national interest. In Persia, the local Zoroastrians and Magian chiefs were consulted, and Cop from Egypt was invited to Medina for consultation. Shifa Abdullah was one of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's female companion, who Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu entrusted her with the leadership role of supervising and monitoring commercial transactions in the entire marketplace of Medina, the first capital of the Islamic Empire. What you see here, my fellow brothers and sisters, is a system where no one felt threatened, where no one was subjected to something that was against their will, where people who were part of society before continued to be part of society after Islam took over. And every individual was consulted because everyone's understanding should be brought to the table of how we better the society we live in. And as you saw in the final point, even the female companions, may Allah be pleased with all of them, those who stood out and were able, were given the opportunity to serve on a large scale. After the conquest of Persia, he took the following steps to regenerate the new territory under Islamic rule. Number one, a cadastral survey of the land was taken on foot. New systems of land assessment was introduced. Taxes were revised. The peasantry was secured in the possession of their own land. A network of canals were dug out for cultivation. Cultivators were given advances. Sales of lands were prohibited as a safeguard against the eviction of local peasants. Broken aqueducts were restored. Liberty of conscience was allowed to all. Muslims were forbidden to interfere with their religion. And those who kept their faith were protected under the Muslim rule. Yes, they paid higher taxes, but they were exempted from service in the military. Umar radiallahu anhu also established something known as the Diwan, which was a register of the pension of the warriors, what is equivalent to Veterans Affairs here in America. And that over time evolved into a powerful government body. He inaugurated the Islamic calendar and he created the office of the judge, the Qadi. This is one individual. One individual. And what we see here, my fellow brothers and sisters, is that the capacity an individual can have and what they can execute upon if they own their religion and they march forward in life with their religion. Here we are grappling with our faith. Can I be a Muslim? Is it okay to say I'm a Muslim? And when it comes to life, we hesitate to lead. We are complacent to the point that we'll just follow. In his book, The Caliphate, Its Rise, Decline, and Fall, William Muir writes, and I quote, Omar began his reign master only of Arabia. He died the caliph of an empire embracing some of the fairest provinces under the Byzantine rule and with Persia to boot. Yet throughout this marvelous fortune, he never lost the balance of a wise and sober judgment, nor did he exalt himself above the frugal habit of the Arab chief, and I quote, what kept Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu grounded, what kept him focused, what gave him all that success, wasn't the fact that Umar bin Khattab was Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu. It was the fact that he wore his Islam and he lived life through that Islam. My brothers and sisters, he owned his religion and the responsibility that came with it. And he delivered above and beyond. Like Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu, many others continue to do the same. They owned their religion, they took responsibility for their faith, and that's why Islam is recognized for its contributions in many nations across the world. We go to Asia, for example, Indonesia. One theory states that Islam arrived directly from Arabia as early as the 9th century, during the time of the Umayyad or Abbasid caliphates. Others credit Sufi travelers for bringing Islam in the 12th or 13th century, either from Gujarat, India, or Persia. You see, trade routes have been instrumental for the spread of Islam. And when people sit and deliberate, are we allowed Islamically to use something which is common in society like social media, it shouldn't be a question, because what the Muslims did is that they saw the trade routes that were connecting different countries around the world as an opportunity to use those very routes for the spread of Islam. They conducted trade, but they also spread Islam. Indonesia has a large community of Hadrami Arabs from Yemen. Muslims from China also left their imprint there. In the 15th century, Muslim Chinese Admiral Chen Ho is often credited for helping spread Islam in the Indonesian island of Java. We turn to India. Islam arrived in the inland of the Indian subcontinent in the 7th century when the Arabs conquered Sindh and later arrived in Punjab in the north of India in the 12th century. And since then, Islam is part of its religious and cultural heritage. History and legend describe the golden age of Islam as the first 400 years of the Abbasid rule, roughly from 750 to 1150. We go to Africa. Islam introduced literacy as well as education into West Africa. Literacy made it possible for scholars to preserve some of the state's history and oral traditions into the form of books. As Islam continued to spread in West Africa, schools and educational centers were established in large towns and cities in Western Sudan. In regards to architecture, Islam helped introduce burnt brick. For example, Ibrahim as-Sahal designed a magnificent brick mosque in Gao, in Timbuktu, and a stone palace in Mali for Mansa Musa. In regards to trade, Islam promoted trade between West Africa and the Mediterranean. The religion developed and widened the trans-Saharan caravan trade. The trade enriched the West Africans and the Muslim traders. In regards to rule of law, most Muslim rulers of Western Sudan adopted the Muslim systems of justice and taxation. Thus, Islam promoted a more efficient administration in some of the states of Western Sudan, since it enabled the rulers to employ educated Muslims as secretaries, administrators, judges, and diplomats, and also to correspond with provincial rulers and administrators. It is significant that even non-Muslim rulers, such as those of ancient Ghana before the 11th century, employed Muslims in their administration. We turn to Europe. Spain, the cultural climate of Spain in the era of the Muslim rule, which was from 711 to 1492, brought about a prospering of different aspects of science and culture. Numerous schools and libraries were established, and books were procured, due to which the majority of the people were literate. Literature and art flourished through Spain. I was reading an essay online written by a non-Muslim female, and those who study the religion that we are a part of, their take of this religion is profound. And those who contributed to this world through the identity of their religion made such an impact that it wasn't ignored by the eyes of those who are not Muslims. She writes in her lengthy essay, Islam and its followers had created a civilization that played a very important role on the world stage for over 1,000 years. One of the most essential specific qualities of the Islamic civilization is that it is a well-balanced civilization that brought together science and faith, struck a balance between spirit and matter, and did not separate this world from the hereafter. This is what distinguishes Islamic civilization from other civilizations, which attach primary importance to the material aspect of life, physical needs, human instincts, and attach greater attention to this world by striving to instantly satisfy desires of the flesh without finding a proper place for God or the hereafter in their philosophies or in their education systems. Another specific characteristic of Islamic civilization is that it spreads the spirit of justice, impartiality, and tolerance amongst people. The result was that people of different beliefs and views lived together in safety, peace, and mutual respect. Mosques stood next to churches, monasteries and synagogues in lands governed by Muslims. This stems primarily from the commandments of the noble Islam. She's writing this, according to which nobody must be forced to convert from their religion and beliefs, since freedom of religion is guaranteed within the Islamic order. Now, this isn't a history lesson, but it's important for us today to pause and reflect that for 1,000 years, Muslims like you and I did amazing things in this world. Spain is no longer a Muslim country, but when you go to Spain, you will see the reminiscence of Islamic presence through their architecture and their system of governance. You go into these countries in Africa, you may not see Islam widespread there, but you will certainly feel that Islam was once here because that feeling lives on. I ask you, beyond Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu, who we all know, mashallah, who were these people? Do you know a single name of the individuals who stepped foot on the islands of Indonesia, or who marched from Sindh to Punjab in India? Do you know these individuals who brought about literacy in West Africa? Or who took upon science and math and made it flourish in Spain? Do you know their names? No, we don't. We don't even know a single one of their names. But we know that their work is well documented. You know who these people were, my fellow Muslims? They were people who once owned their religion, and they owned the responsibility that came with their religion. And not only did they deliver, but they delivered above and beyond. My question today is this: where did Muslims in America go wrong? No doubt, Muslims in America have done great. Many have done remarkable things. However, Islam has not. Islam has yet to set its footprint on the shores of this beautiful nation. And this doesn't mean war. It doesn't mean enslavement. It doesn't mean taking over. If that's what you're thinking, then you've missed everything I said for the last 21 minutes. It's a contribution that we give to a society that when we're in our graves and our bodies are gone, people will remember that Muslims did something here. Islam brought a fundamental contribution to each land and its people that it served. In 1993, the historian Richard Eaton claimed that Islam was history's first truly global civilization. My brothers and sisters, it's very simple. You've heard me say this already thrice. The moment that we as Muslims own our religion and take the responsibility that came with this religion, no, not part-time, not Ramadan, not Friday, not a zakat or a sadaqah. I mean own it. I mean live it. I mean be proud with it. You will be amazed what you and your children can do. At that time, we're not going to be worried about preserving Islam in our generations. We won't be worried if our kids may go off on a tangent or they may drop by the wayside with mentalities that affirm things in society that don't correspond with our beliefs and our traditions. We won't worry about it then. You know why? Because we're so fixated and connected to Allah. We're so fixated on this religion. We're driven and motivated to do something with this religion that nothing and no one will ever threaten that confidence within us. It's like the game that just finished. I hope I'm not ruining it for anyone, but the reason Croatia won is because they got into the head of the Brazilians. You get into their head, it's done. The game is over. The Muslims didn't go to places and say, I'm going to tell you to be a Muslim or I'm going to kill you and take over your land. Muslims went because there was an opportunity to provide something that they were able to provide to the lands that they came from. My fellow Muslims, when will we own our religion and the responsibility that comes with it? When we do two things. Number one, we think as one body, not one individual. And number two, when we feel comfortable in our own skin. I'm going to pause here. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to think, to ponder, to reflect, to realize that we too are individuals who have been gifted Islam that can do for this country and this world what people have done for societies and nations before. May Allah grant us the tawfiq. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Alhamdulillah wa kafa wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa mawala. My fellow brothers and sisters, elders and children, when it comes to being confident in our skin, identity crisis is something that Muslims are suffering with greatly in this nation. You may have children and you don't even know what's going through their head. You don't know what challenges and battles they're fighting in their head. It's become a tough world. And the fight is real. You yourself sometimes, when things don't go your way, doubt Allah's mercy. Doubt His presence. You jump to the conclusion that Allah doesn't care about me. It's because we're not confident. Confident in what? هو اجتباكم وما جعل عليكم في الدين من حرج ملة أبيكم إبراهيم هو سماكم المسلمين. Allah chose you. He selected you. You see, selection and choice means there was consideration put into it. Allah did not give you Islam to hurt you. مَا أَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْكَ الْقُرْآنَ لِتَشْقَى. We didn't reveal the Quran upon you, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to make your life miserable. This is a solution for a productive, prosperous life. He didn't make any hardship for you in this deen. هُوَ سَمَّاكُمُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. He has given you the name of a Muslim. He's given you this title, Muslimin. My brothers and sisters, I don't have the time at this moment to talk about how important it is for us to feel confident. But I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that as the waves crash on us from all angles, and the ideologies and the trends and the new things that are hyped up in society conflict with us, clash with us, that Allah gives each and every one of us the strength to ride these waves and to weather the storm and to get beyond this. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. As for the first point, that we think as one body and not one person. My brothers and sisters, when a nation celebrates the success of their team, it's because the team united as one body. And each player on that team didn't think about what they could do for themselves, but they thought about what they can do for their people back home. It's the World Cup. gives you an idea of what that spirit is like. Allah has gifted each and every one of you here with a talent, an ability, an understanding that no one else has. It's not because this is exclusive for you and for you alone to benefit. It's rather a piece of the puzzle that when you take it and unite it with the other pieces, it becomes something much greater. It is time for us here in South Florida, as we look at our masajid and our institutions and how far we've come over the last 4 decades. It's time for us to now come together as people, as one ummah, as one body, because truly we need that positive reinforcement that is not seen amongst us and it's not seen outside of us. It's the season of Christmas. Everywhere you go, you hear Christmas carols and music, and you see Christmas ornaments and decorations, and you're like, man, this is so cool. This is nice, right? Like, they really own this and they celebrate it. You know why it's so cool? Because that's the message they're constantly giving. And when you're constantly bombarded by one message, it starts trickling inside of you. You're like, hey, that's good. I'll dance to the beat. But when that positive reinforcement happens within us, because we only pray 5 times a day here, right? It's like 10 minutes in and out. We need to become more of an ummah. And that is why, my brothers and sisters, the South Florida Muslim Federation was formed. The Federation isn't about an institute. It's not about a building. It's about you and I creating and leaving behind a legacy that Islam will not only establish its footprint in this society, but Islam will be the premise of solving the many predicaments this society is suffering with, and will be part of the solution and the path towards prosperity for all its people. There was never a khilafah where it was only exclusive to the Muslims. It was everyone. And as you heard, Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu not only included them in the society, but he utilized them for the benefit of the society. It's time we utilize ourselves for the betterment of this society. The Federation is a very important project ongoing here. Please take a moment to learn more as you exit the masjid today. Pick up our brochure and become part of this federation. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unite our hearts. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unite our direction. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unite our focus and direction. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to serve Him confidently, proudly, in a humble manner for His sake. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. We send salutations and blessings upon Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, who guided us and mentored us, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, Inna Allah wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi, ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik ala Sayyidina Muhammad, abdika wa rasulika al-nabiy al-ummi, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa baraka wa sallama tasliman kathiran kathira. Allahumma alif bayna qulubina wa aslih dhata baynina واهدنا سبل السلام وجنبنا الفواحش ما ظهر منها وما بطن. اللهم اغفر لنا ما قدمنا وما أخرنا وما علنا وما أسررنا وما أنت أعلم به منا. أنت المقدم وأنت المؤخر، لا إله إلا أنت. اللهم اشف مرضانا وعاف مبتلانا وارحم موتانا يا رب العالمين. آمين يا رب العالمين. آمين يا رب العالمين. آمين يا رب العالمين. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. فاذكروا الله يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون. Let us all rise inshallah and form our line, stand shoulder to shoulder. Please ensure the line in front of us is complete before we form a second line. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our congregation today and continue to allow us to come and frequent His house. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen.